We are recording, and sorry, I'm trying to operate two things. I'm doing this from my phone for the first time, so we'll see how this works. But we got Dr. Mike Russell on the call. Hey, Mike, how's it going?
What's going on, man? How are you? It's good to see you.
I am doing so good. You and I have known each other for some years, and it is so cool that you are now a sponsor of the Las Vegas Triathlon Club. And I love the work that you're doing in physical therapy. And I'm going to get into that a little bit, but we've crossed paths, in several different avenues, not only academically, but then also in triathlon as triathletes, and then also in the physical therapy world. So I want to actually just ask you to sort of go over your big picture of your background in terms of getting involved in physical therapy and where you are now and your triathlon.
You bet. Absolutely. It's so funny. I had a physical therapy graduate of UNLV was in my clinic just doing some shadowing and some interning, and made mention about Dr. Mercer. I go, oh, really? Do you know Dr. Mercer? And he said, yeah, he was instrumental in me doing some of my their graduate research that they have to do. I said, you know what? Me too. We're on a research project together. And I go, he was my professor, if you can believe that.
That was one of my favorite research projects too. That was great.
It was a cool one. And I still talk about, ground reaction forces. And still, it's because that's a big part of what we're seeing in the running and with running injuries. So it's a huge deal. But yeah, so coming up through the undergraduate, doing a kines undergraduate, preparing for physical therapy school. And I went to physical therapy school here at UNLV. Loved the program and graduated. I think what I wanted to get into most was private practice. So I always knew that I wanted to be a private practice owner. So I wanted my own office. I wanted to be able to kind of treat the patients that I wanted to treat. In having my own practice, I was able to cross paths with a mutual friend. Her name's Jackie Arcana.
Oh yeah.
And Jackie ran Excel training group. So she approached me one day and said, hey, Mike, I know you work with triathletes a lot. If it's okay, I'd like to lease a little bit of space out of your clinic. And I was like, really? You're going to bring your athletes into my office? It's a no-brainer. So Jackie was actually able to bring some of her training group into our office. And we almost had a little bit of a symbiotic relationship of, hey, why don't you try training? Hey, if you're hurt and can't train, why don't you see if Mike can help you out? So that helped me really, really get a lot closer to the triathlon community from a physical therapist standpoint. Prior to that, I started to get involved in running a little bit, and I was not good at it. I enjoyed doing it. And, when I was in high school, I think the thought of practicing to run, that was ridiculous, right? Who practices to run? Like I'll go play basketball or football or something like that, but practicing running doesn't make sense. And then it just started to click and started to make sense. Say, hey, this is a good exercise. I feel much better after doing it. It was a ton of fun. And so I got conned into going up to St. George for a little sprint triathlon that they had up there. This 500-yard indoor swim, 10-mile bike ride, a little 3-mile run, right? Yeah. Oh, couldn't it was almost like being injected with adrenaline. You're just like, this is so much fun. I enjoyed it. And from that point, just a little bit of running, a little bit of swimming, and then a lot of cycling to kind of go, hey, let's get prepped up. And I was, did several of the local races in town, which and they're a ton of fun. And then did the Silverman before the Silverman got kind of scooped out of Las Vegas. And the rumor is it got scooped up out of Vegas because the pros were tired of having bad times because of how challenging our course is. So it was a tough course. So I enjoyed doing Silverman and getting to that 70.3 level, or that distance anyway. But I think that's the kind of the majority of kind of my background. I'm not good at any sport, so I was like, let's be bad at 3 sports.
I don't know about that. Yeah.
but the community that the triathlon creates is a unique one. It's awesome. It's a pleasure to be part of.
Yeah, that's right. I now I remember you being connected with Jackie and her group, and that's neat to build that symbiotic relationship between triathletes and what you do. But talk a little bit more about why physical therapy. What was it about that area that really drew you to, obviously go through lots of education to get to where you are?
So originally I wanted to be in law enforcement. I was like, oh, law enforcement's
Oh,
the way to go, right?
yeah.
And as I got closer to the law enforcement community, which I have the most respect for, it wasn't for me. I have a hard time leaving what you see as a law enforcement officer and whatever, division you're going to serve in. I was like, I have a hard time leaving that at the door and then coming home. And so I just
Yeah.
said, well, what else do I enjoy? How else do I help people? And so I was at a junior college and taking in what they called a sports medicine class. And in the sports medicine class, we learned athletic taping, splinting, bracing, and things of that nature. And right away, it was great. I thought, man, this is a lot of fun. And so I was at an intramural basketball game, and I had this, I was dangerous with what little knowledge I had, and an athlete went down, or a basketball player went down. I'm taping this kid's ankle up super fast and throwing him back in the game. And he was able to finish the game. I'm like, hey, this is for me. I can do this. So I think that it's always been an idea of how to help. How can I help people keep doing the things that they love to do? And then how do they get better at it, right? Well, injury is inevitable. I've just seen it repeatedly. So it doesn't matter as much preparation as you want to have, something's going to happen. Something's going to get in the way and create a limitation, or create or put a stop to whatever you're trying to do, and going, well, I can't do it now. Well, let me try to figure out how to put you back in. And you may not be PR or best, but you're competing. And I think that's what a lot of people want. Hey, they put a lot of money into travel, shipping their bike, getting to an area, paying for the event. And it's like, to sit there and go, I either have to defer or I have to pull out. I think that's a tough thing to do. I think even the DNF, I think when people do not finish a race, there's a mental component to that, right? Yeah. People have a hard time. That DNF, I failed. And so, and you and I know it happens, it's part of it. But to say, hey, okay, well, let's get you back, let's get you better. And so you can train harder so that you don't do that again, and you do better, and you get those PRs and you move on and start doing the longer distances.
Oh, I love it. Well, and you talked about a few things there with triathletes. Is a lot of times you may not see them until they're hurt, and then you've got to start working with them. But sometimes it sounds like you're building these relationships. I've seen on Facebook some posts where you're working with people who are healthy and you're helping to prevent injuries. So talk a little bit about how you work with an athlete, either once they come to you with an injury, or if you're working with them and you're trying to be preventative in terms of getting an injury.
The hardest part is to get the athlete the week before. You're like, I really wish there was something I could do, right? I'm going to do what I can. Let's see if we can duct tape you together and go. But what we are always looking for, and the research is constantly looking for preventative ways to reduce. And we talk a lot about run-related injuries. I think that's, from a race standpoint, it's probably the one that's going to hurt us or probably stop us from completing. As long as we can get through the bike, stay hydrated, keep with nutrition. When we get off the bike and start to run on tired legs, I think that's where there's a problem that usually develops itself. So with a run-related injury, trying to prevent that. So either in training or during the race. And so, just at the marathon that was here in April, the aggressive downhill Rebel Marathon, your hips are blown to pieces in your quads, right? So at the bottom of the hill, everyone's just like, man, doing the old Frankenstein walk to try to finish. And it happens because either we're not prepared for it, and you got to think about what preparation means, right? It's putting in the accessory work. It's resistance training to build a muscle that anti-fatigues. It's mobility work, making sure we have the mobility in the muscle to try to take it through what we're trying to take it through. And then you spread that across 3 sports. So preventative stuff's extremely difficult. And it's difficult to say, And despite what social media says, when they're like, do these three things, when those three things don't work for everybody, right? So it's a balance. So the preventative stuff's the biggest component, right? It's, hey, I'm starting my training block. Let me see how I feel. I treat, evaluate. I'll put people on a treadmill. I'll run and watch them just to see what they look like uninjured. Because just putting somebody on a treadmill and saying, oh, you run wrong. Well, that's not the case either. With that, let's put that aside. Your shoes don't cause you an injury. It's your training causes you an injury. So we try to say, hey, let's do a pre, training when you're getting into the heavy training miles and the heavy training hours. Can we look at what normal looks like, so that when I see you injured, I know exactly what to do, and how to treat that. The other component of that is right now it's 1,000 degrees outside, and going out for a run right now it's extremely different. Going out for a 5-hour bike ride, you're starting at 2 a.m. to finish as the sun's coming up, which I know you've done before. I've gotten up early before.
I think you've been on some of those rides too. So
yeah, it's not very fun. It's tough, right? It's really, really difficult on the day. So right now, right, what are you doing to prepare for your race that you have in September, October, November, December? The summer training months are the difficult months. So this is a great time to prepare. This is a great time to rehab. This is a great time to do all the preparation. This is to learn all the accessory work. Absolutely. This is the time to do that. But try to identify something that's maybe wrong and address it and get it taken care of.
I love it. And I love that you've tried to get, the movements of people when they're not hurt. Because I love that comparative nature of looking at what someone looks like when they're healthy, and then when they're presenting with some type of injury. So triathletes are a tough bunch to work with, as you know, because we're trying to do 3 sports and trying to stay healthy in those 3 sports. What are some of the common mistakes that you see triathletes make? And I really appreciate what you said earlier in terms of shoes. It's not the shoe that's going to cause the injury, it's the training error that's going to be the injury. I know we've talked about that in the past, and it's such a great perspective. So, but what, we don't want to have triathletes not be injured, because obviously that puts to rest the need for physical therapy. But
exactly,
what are some things that triathletes tend to maybe overindulge in that lead to an injury?
Coming from an injury. So when somebody was used to doing or training at a certain level, meaning volume, distance, intensity, you come out of an injury thinking, hey, let's just go right back to where my training was.
Oh, yeah, right?
You can't. You got to go. Let's trim it back a little bit, and let me take the time and ramp back up. So it's a volume, intensity, duration kind of an issue, right? How much of your week are you dedicating to your training? If you're uninjured, be careful on the ramp up. And I've looked at people's Stravas, and you can see it specifically. The week that they spiked their run, and it went from, let's say, a 15 to 25 mile week to a 35 mile week of running.
That's a big jump.
No, man, and they've got something big coming up. So they're like, I got to make sure I can do it. And then it just starts, then they just like, I can't get my mileage. It hurts beyond 6. It's like, okay, well, now you're stuck at 5 for a little bit of time. So, you got to go to 5, train from 5, and then slowly build back up. So it's the constant is too much too soon, with too much intensity, volume, distance, that nature. So the error is in the training. The error is in the load, either going out too much or kind of just saying, hey, I'm going to start up at the top here and try to shoot forward. Be careful mixing in the speed works, right? Speed work and hill repeats. They're fantastic and necessary, but remember, that's where the injuries will start manifesting themselves. It's going to, once you start doing some speed work, that will expose a weak muscle, a tight muscle, or a kind of a current injured muscle, and it's going to pop its head out and cause some problems.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah, that too much change too fast is really the issue for a lot of us that we make, and we get over aggressive, and so that I love that message. How about within physical therapy? What's changed over the last maybe 10 years in terms of how to approach? I mean, there's so much more wearable technology, and athletes, I think, are much more knowledgeable about what they're doing load wise. How have you seen the area change, and maybe how it impacts how you treat someone?
I think we're starting to figure out like the best supplement or the best performance enhancer is sleep. So that's one
Mm,
of the things that have recently come out, and you'll see all the gurus are talking about it. Get your sleep and get your rest. If you're not
mhm,
a rested individual, you're not going to recover as well,
yeah,
and you're prone to injury. And
mm,
then within that are some specifics. There's heart rate variability, and then there's zone training. We're learning you can stay in a lower zone over a long period of time. And then you
mhm,
could short bursts into zone 3, 4,
yeah,
5 kind of
yeah,
exercise. So you can,
mhm,
we're a little smarter in training with a lower volume, not
mhm,
knowing that we don't have to cram all those miles and all that distance in.
mm,
Um, and I'm thinking it's in the 90s. There was a practitioner that he kind of coined the phrase, it all changes when your foot hits the ground. And
mm,
there's truth to that. And as a
mhm,
biomechanist, you understand that the foot's highly complex, and when it hits the ground, a lot of different things are taking place. What I'm seeing in the research is a top-down approach. And
mm,
for run-related injuries, we're seeing hip and core to control for lower extremity injuries. And for shoulders and neck, we're looking at, or the shoulders, shoulders and neck, we're looking at kind of making sure range of motion through the cervical spine's normal, and then range of motion through the shoulders from a top down,
mm,
rather than saying, hey, let's do the bottom up approach.
mm.
Um, yeah, two just very recent articles, one this year, one last year, talking about the hip and core. It's probably one of the first things that I'm always going to go to, even in a plantar fascial kind of issue, plantar
Mhm.
fasciopathy, heel related pain, knee related pain. We're going to start hip and work our way down, and then we make the adjustments into the foot and ankle.
Oh, I love it. It's so important to have that type of approach to understanding running, because the vast majority of triathletes get injured because of running. So, and there's plenty of research on that. So, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but any triathlons in your future?
So, and I have the St. George Marathon in October. So
Nice.
and just what I alluded to with training, because it's so hot outside, it's that it turns into treadmill running. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what it turns in
Hmm.
for me. We're gonna crush the treadmill inside for
Hmm.
the majority of the time. But
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
a great time to get in the water and start swimming,
Yeah.
and even get on the trainer inside and start spinning the bike and start kind
Yeah.
of waiting for the time to go
Hmm.
up. So I'm thinking Pumpkin Man would be a great one to come
Uh,
back to and climb
that's
that stupid hill into Boulder City, and then go in the parking lot and out of the
yeah.
parking lot and climb another hill. It's
That's
super fun. Pumpkin Man's a
that's
fun one. That's a fun
it
race.
is. It is. That's an iconic one. Well, best of luck at the marathon. I said I'd only want keep you for about 15 minutes. I know you're super busy.
I
Thank you
appreciate it.
again for being a sponsor of the club. Thank you for jumping on this call. For people who don't
Yep.
know you, can get to know you. And it's nice that, as a physical therapist, to understand the triathlete. That's important, because a lot of times people are looking for a healthcare team that understands what they're trying to do, and you're certainly in that vein. So thank you so much, and
Thanks,
good luck with the
John.
marathon.
I
And I
appreciate
hope
it.
to see you at Pumpkin Man for sure.
Absolutely. Let's do it. Thanks, buddy.
All right. All right.
Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Hold on. And there we go. Stop.